As far as this baseball season goes, you could say we're rounding the corner and heading home. It's the home stretch. That's right. About to be September. Don't stop being active. I'm going to keep saying it, even if you're in the playoffs or you feel like you're sitting pretty at the top of the standings. You never know when that team that you think is behind you catches up. So here we got 10 more players that could help you off the waiver wire this coming week. And as usual, a mix starters, closers, hitters. I'm going to start with the closers, though, because I think the top ad for this week has got to be Abner Uribe, at least in any league. That counts saves. Of course, if there's a league that counts holds, then he should have been owned all season long. He has been flat out dominant, but now with Trevor McGill on the IL, bad timing for the Brewers, although hopefully he's back in time for the playoffs. Uribe is not only undoubtedly the closer there in Milwaukee, he could be one of the best because he's been lights out all season long. I mean, he's got a 1.71 ERA, a 1.06 whip, strikeout rate of 30.8%. He's got the makeup of a closer, all the stuff that you can want. And I mean, really, this is just a matter of time. It feels like McGill had been fine, but Uribe has got a better fastball, better stuff. Last year it didn't happen for him. It was kind of a lost season because first, he was bad to start the season. Let's just face it. He was giving it up, and then he got into a fight. He got suspended, and then he got hurt. It was a disaster, right? But everything that we thought we might get from him, we're getting now, and finally, here come the saves. The only other thing I need to add here is that if you're in a league that does count saves, and maybe you've already got a couple of good closers, maybe you're fine in that category. If you can afford it, I still like to play defense. Pick him up so somebody else doesn't do it instead. And then to me, not as much of a priority, but also slighter chance that you can get him because Ryan Walker is still owned in a lot of leagues. He's the new old closer for the Giants. Remember, last year he's the one that took over for Duvall, and I guess technically he is again this year. Duvall was traded, but Randy Rodriguez was the guy we were all excited about, and now he's hurt. So here we go. Walker is the closer for the Giants again, and he has acquitted himself well so far. Two saves back to back, and I have to admit, look, because I gave him, a lot of grief early in the season. He was bad. Like, let's face it, most of the first half, I mean, he was getting hit hard. Was not the same guy, which is why he lost that closer job to begin with. But now he really has turned the corner and is looking more like the 2024 version of himself. Just in the second half of the season, Walker posting a 2.30 ERA. That whip is just over 1. And, well, one thing that he has done pretty much all season is he hasn't gotten hit hard. He gave up a lot of hits early and had just some bad runs I mean, there was a stretch where he was giving up a run almost every outing. He has settled down big time, but that barrel rate is a 96th percentile, the average exit velocity, 95th percentile, the hard hit rate. All of this shows that he's not a guy who's prone to give up that late homer. He's been able to avoid any of these bad stretches. If he keeps it going and he keeps this job, maybe he's able to get you a few more saves before the season ends. Now, closers aside, I will say I think the top ad as far as pitchers overall, and for starters, it's got to be Kyle Bradish. My advice a couple of weeks ago to stash him. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of people did that because only 30% rostered, at least in Yahoo leagues. And I know there's still got to be more teams than that are still active at this point. So, look, if he's still out there, there's no excuse not to. I mean, his first outing, you want to know what he looked like? His very first start of the year, yeah, because he's missed the entire year with injury. And I get it, it's risky and you don't know what he's going to look like. He looked great. Over 6 innings against the Red Sox, he gave up 2 runs on 4 hits, and he struck out 10. And as I had said previously, over the past 2 seasons, when healthy, Bradish, very low ratios. He's been a solid source of K help as well. He eat up a fair amount of innings. I don't think they'll push him too hard, but at the same time, how much time do we have left here? This guy hasn't pitched really in over a year, until he started rehabbing. So, yeah, they'll probably let him go about 6 innings a few more times, and then that's it. He's scheduled right now to make his next start against the Padres. And that's an offense that has not been lighting it up. So I think if you get him, you immediately roll him out. And I guess we got to keep rolling with Luis Morales. He's one of those must stash prospects I mentioned right when he got the call. He was great in the minors, but of course, that doesn't always translate. It's translating, and the A's, again, they seem to have a very deep farm system, both offense and pitching, and they're doing something right, right? At the very least, these pitchers are looking good. Morales, there was some questions about his command. He's definitely got the fastball, right? He can strike out hitters, but sometimes he can be wild. He hasn't been so far. And then how about this? Keeps ramping up. Last 3 starts, 5 innings, then 6 innings, and then 7 innings, and he gave up in those games respectively 1 run, 1 run, no runs, and 18 strikeouts over those 3 starts. You got to feel like eventually he will hit a bump in the road, right? I don't know if he can be dominant every start in his first taste of the majors, but again, and until it happens, I think you can't just ignore this. He is a guy who has plenty of talent, and he's built to be a starter. He's got his shot now with a couple of pitchers there on the IL. So yeah, if you have Morales available, I'm not going to replace one of my reliable starters for him, especially at this point of the season. But if you're looking for a boost, somebody you've got is injured, you've got to take a chance on the upside here. And then real quick here on just this past Beat the Breakout, this past week, a couple days ago, I talked about Jonah Tong with the Mets. I just want to repeat that this isn't just a stash. This is a guy who now should just be added. And you can say with any guy who hasn't even pitched yet in the majors, it's a speculative stash. But I mean, come on, when you have the guy who's leading the minor league system in strikeouts, and he's one of the Mets' top prospects, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, you add him, and I think I would feel confident enough to start him in his debut because it's scheduled on Friday to be against the Marlins. And there's no point for me to mention Nolan McLean again because he's pretty much owned everywhere now. Like, honestly, Jonah Tong, his stuff, he could want to be even better than McLean. All right, now onto the hitters. Or we're going to go a little veteran here. Let's start with a guy who seems to be trying to squeeze the most out of the last part of the season after not doing a whole lot. Adolis Garcia for the Rangers. And it's funny, but again, this is how baseball works. Just when you basically are ready to give up on a guy who, again, is pretty mediocre, not doing a whole lot this season, barely fantasy relevant, and then he hits the IL, you think, all right, well, I can just drop him. And then immediately, for again, absolutely no good reason, as soon as he comes off the IL, he's on fire. A 5 game hit streak. He's got 2 homers, 8 RBIs, even 3 steals, just coming off a 4-for-6 game. Why? Well, I'd like to say maybe he's somehow trying to fight to keep the Rangers relevant and make a playoff push. That's not the case here. He is arbitration eligible. It might have something to do with that. Look, either way, it doesn't matter. We know he's a proven hitter. He's got the power. He happens to be motivated as of right now. He's producing. Scoop him back up. Then another familiar name. You probably haven't really thought too much about Lourdes Gurriel. And we know they're not contending, so why all of a sudden has Gurriel decided to come on late? Again, not quite sure. I honestly have been trying to just not pay attention to Gurriel. He's done this before. He'll put together a couple of good weeks and then go back to being forgettable, but can't ignore it anymore. He's putting together just a really, really good month. He will not stop driving in runs. In fact, it's really surprising if you look at the box score from Thursday night. Didn't drive in run. He only had 3 hits in that game, but man, for the month of August, 32 RBIs and 7 homers to go along with it. Looking overall, even in this past month, his batting average is not that great, but for some reason, just cannot stop getting RBIs. Now, those players may not be available in your league, so let's get deeper. Pretty confident in all but the deepest leagues. If you need help at outfield, you might be able to find Jesus Sanchez. Remember, he was shipped from the Marlins to the Astros at the deadline. And he had a stretch where even if he was rostered anywhere, he surely was dropped because between August 10th and August 20th, he was hitless over that entire stretch of 27 at bats. So just like what I talked about with Adolis Garcia, just when he was at his lowest, boom, here we go. He snapped out of it with a 5-for-5 game and then has not stopped. Well, he's at least been better. He's got a pair of homers this past week. He's picking it up. But here's the only thing. He's not playing every day, right? This is a guy who will definitely sit against left-handed pitching. In fact, even on Thursday night, didn't play because Kyle Freeland was on the mound, which is a shame. And so, as long as you know you're getting a platoon bat here, strong side, yes, but Sanchez has power. He can contribute in a pretty good Astros lineup. So, you know what? If he's in the lineup, take a chance on him until he cools down. And then a player you may be familiar with, if you played fantasy baseball a couple years ago, remember Zach Geloff was kind of a thing. So in 2023, he had a 14-14 half season. Yeah, 14 homers, 14 steals, and around 300 plate appearances. And so, of course, do the quick math. It was just assumed that the next year he would be a 30-30 type of player. Didn't happen. In fact, he was looking like a huge bust until he had a huge injury, and then it was a wash. And this whole season, I mean, delay after delay, setbacks in his rehab, and so we weren't even sure we were going to see him. But here he has resurfaced. First two games were hitless, but then his last game, 2 for 4 with a homer and 4 RBIs. So what we're doing here, just like a lot of people did last year, we're speculating that he can put together some sort of a power speed combination that can be helpful. He's got the tools, right? This guy has always had some power, and that's nice at second base, and he will steal bases. He is getting playing time now since coming off the IL. He has started at second base 3 straight games. So the at-bats are going to be there. Pretty good offense overall. So there's opportunity here. The batting average is the thing that might wind up hurting you if he does go cold. But again, this guy has something to prove. Geloff could be one of those sneaky contributors for the last couple of weeks. And then more than sneaky, you might not have heard of Jeremiah Jackson, but he's quietly putting together a good couple of weeks there for the Orioles. There were plenty of opportunities for playing time there after they shipped off half of their lineup. And Jeremiah Jackson, interesting because in fantasy, he'll qualify at shortstop and at outfield. So this might make for a nice kind of utility player on your bench that you can swap in and out of the lineup. He hasn't made any really big highlight plays. He's not hitting a bunch of home runs, but he has put together, again, pretty quietly, an 8-game hit streak, and now he's hitting .329 over 81 plate appearances since getting called up. And what's better is that for Baltimore now, they've moved him up to second in that lineup. That means if he continues getting on base, he could score some runs, and he hasn't been stealing bases either. Unlike Geloff, he's not going to necessarily get you homer and steals. He's going to get you batting average. So I guess pick your poison here with one of these two guys. Not encouraged by the fact that he's not walking almost at all, but at the same time, sometimes aggressive hitters are able to get on base, and he doesn't have to keep this up much longer. Not much longer left in the season. We appreciate everyone who's been watching all season long. And yeah, football's just around the corner. And don't forget, if you watch football at all, if you play fantasy football, check out the Fantasy Endgame football channel.